Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that this conversation with Lex was recorded in January of 2020 before COVID-19 and the pandemic really took hold. So you're going to hear some stuff about travel and all that stuff during this episode, which, I think is fantastic. So before we get into this episode, I wanted to tell you that this episode was recorded in January of 2020. And that was before COVID-19 and the pandemic really started to take hold, at least in North America. So why did I wait this long to release it? Well, first off, it was in the queue to be released later in the year. And it just so happens that now is the time that it was going to come out. But I actually bumped it up a couple of weeks because I wanted to share it with you as one of the Sunday episodes rather than just a solo conversation, because I think the message that Lex is sharing through this discussion, and I think it's something that we all need to keep in mind as we go through this age of uncertainty, more uncertain maybe than any of us have experienced before, with the idea that life is an adventure, and an amazing one at that. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the podcast, my conversation with Lex Latkovski. So let's get started. I'd like to welcome Lex Latkovski, and I think I got that right this time, Lex, here on the Productivityist podcast. I say Productivityist and it's a tongue twister, so you've finally given me one as well. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. I tell people to say it Latkovski, but I can't expect everybody to be able to pronounce it like I have for all these years.
Well, we were just talking about the word productivityist, and it's like people say productivity. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
No worries.
So let's get into why I've had you on the show today. We had a great conversation several months ago. Like, we're talking, almost, I'd say, by the time that we're airing this, close to a year of just focusing on, we came across each other's paths through Andy Traub, mutual friend. And, you and I have crossed paths, not directly up until that point, but through the same circles of like the Jeff Goins at Tribe Conference. Tell my audience a little bit about who you are and, your book. You've got the book that I want to touch on today, which of course is Passport Forward: Moving from Regrets and Routine to Freedom, Passion, and Adventure. But let's share a little bit with my audience here about who you are and what drives you.
Well, thank you, Mike. First of all, I'm a huge fan of Andy Traub. I met him through Jeff Goins, and I'm a big fan of Jeff Goins, a good friend of his. And So you and I have actually been in the same room together at the Tribe Conference, Jeff Goins' Tribe Conference before. We didn't have the pleasure of meeting face to face, but hopefully we'll fix that soon. So I live in Louisville, Kentucky right now. I've been to 82 countries in the world, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. I spent 16 months living as a Zen monk in a monastery down in Southern California, up in the mountains above Palm Springs. And I was fortunate enough to be on make it to the semifinals round on America's Got Talent, and all these things that I can say I've done. But what I like doing, someone asked me the other day what really makes me happy, and it's like I like entertaining people, I like making people laugh, and I like helping people and being nice to people. So if you ask me all the things I've done some cool stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm a nice guy. I like to help people, and I like to make people laugh and hopefully inspire them to go out and do something fun with their life.
So let's talk about the Zen monastery component, the idea of like one of the things that comes up there is that, like, that just seems challenging at best and almost I wouldn't say arduous. I think would be arduous. Like, how were you able to, like, first off, what led you to do that, and secondly, like, what were the things that kind of kept you going over that period of time? Because it's not something just anybody can do.
That's a very good question. I actually touch on that in my book. When I went to the Zen Center, I found out about Zen through a friend who had actually gone to a 7-day silent retreat. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. He was a very good friend of mine named Patrick. And Patrick went to the 7-day silent retreat over there at the place that I ended up moving to. And he came back and he said, "Hey, Lex, I found I found what you've been looking for, even though I really had never told him what I was looking for. But I don't know how anybody knows what I'm really looking for. But he said, I found what you're looking for. And he told me all about it. And I was like, how did I not even know this was on the menu of available options in life? And so, I was born and raised Catholic. I'm, not specifically religious anymore, but I'm spiritual. And he found something, and so he enjoyed it so much, and he was so excited about it that I went with him a couple months later and did a 7-day silent retreat. And it was like something I had never even known was on the menu of options in life. All of a sudden, someone brought me a new menu and said, "Here, you've been eating oatmeal. I've got, whatever your ideal thing is, whether it's steak or shrimp or kale. I've got a big plate of this sitting over here for you that you can enjoy." And so I got hooked and started going for a silent retreat every couple of months. And then eventually I just said, I'm tired of doing it week by week. I want to go dig into it deeper. So I called up the Zen master and I said, I want to go do this for a year. And he said, come on.
And you just went, wow. Yeah,
Well,
it's
I didn't just go because I had a house, I had vehicles, I had actually at that time I had 4 houses that I was investing in real estate in Phoenix. And I had a girlfriend, I had a couple of vehicles, I had a job, all kinds of stuff. So it took me about 6 months to unravel everything in the right way so that I could free myself up enough to go and sit on a cushion for 6 hours a day.
What happened during that process? Like when you were there, what were some of the things that helped you maybe even change your perspective or just came to the fore as you were going through this?
Well, one of the best things was that I started to go to bed earlier. You and I've talked about this, Mike. I'm a night owl,
Yep.
and if I go to bed before midnight, it feels like I'm giving up. So I started to go to bed around 9 o'clock and getting up around 4:30 or 5 o'clock for the first time in my life, and I loved it. So I kind of gained an appreciation for that. But what I learned over the course of the time wasn't so much what I added to my knowledge, was what I allowed to fall away or disappear from my knowledge and my programming. And so I grew up in a very, I'm sure some of these people that are listening can relate to this. I grew up in a very enmeshed family, a very loving and supportive and great family, but it was always meddling and asking, are you okay? What was that noise? What's going on? Are you sure? Are you sure? And so I had all this noise going all the time. And when I went to the Zen Center and we were quiet for most of the time, it was like the first time where I actually had my own space and my own room to do what I needed to do. And so by being quiet for a while, a lot of the thoughts and feelings and emotions and habits that I had created over the course of 30 years or whatever it was started to drop away because I wasn't feeding that animal anymore.
Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today. Let's talk about keeping going, moving forward. The book's called Passport Forward, Moving from Regrets and Routine to Freedom, Passion, and Adventure. Before we jumped on the call, we talked a little bit about routine. Now, some people might, that listen to this program might go, no, but routines are essential. But that's not really what you're talking about here. Like, we're not talking about morning, evening routines. You talked about, before we jumped on, the idea of habit building and the don't break the chain ritual, which is kind of like a routine. But that's not what you're alluding to here, are you?
No. What I wanted to do was I wanted to, instead of adding things to my list of tricks, I wanted I wanted to pull stuff out of my bag of tricks so that I could find out who I really was, to
Right.
let go of the facade and all this stuff. And so by the process of that, I learned more about who I am at my core. What you asked earlier, and I didn't finish my thought, but the one of the things that I got was compassion. I became much more patient with people. I have a much deeper heart now, and I'm a terrible multitasker, but I get a lot of stuff done. So I do one thing at a time very well, and then I move on to the next thing. And if I'm talking to my girlfriend, I talk to my girlfriend. If I'm not talking to my girlfriend, looking at my phone and doing other stuff, because one of those is going to suffer. And so the the routine at the Zen Center is etched. It's etched in stone. It's you got you wake up at this time. There's the bell goes off at this time. You're sitting for 30 minutes. You get up and walk for 10 minutes. You sit for 30 minutes, walk for 10 minutes. Then you have breakfast. Then you work and blah blah blah. The schedule doesn't move. So, but inside of that rigid schedule, there's all types of freedom because you're not worrying about what to do and where you're supposed to be. You do what you're supposed to do, and you find space and time in there to get other things done. And so, you're an extremely prolific guy, Mike. You get more stuff done. You make me tired reading all your emails just because of all these things that are coming in. I don't know how you do it, and I sometimes feel like a slacker because I only do one thing and I do it really well, and then I move on to the next project. But
I have
right
lots of
now,
help. I have lots of help. I think that's
uh,
the key too. I think a lot of people when they're talking about productivity and time and getting things done, the optics are wow. You get a lot of stuff done. But I have help. I think is really important actually, and
oh,
that's a nice shift. Like who's helped you along the way during this process? Because you made some pretty big changes. You must have had some people that kind of fell by the wayside, but then you've got to have people that kind of stuck by you and said, "Oh, this is great. Let me support you in this."
oh yeah, I've got, I don't have any enemies that I'm aware of, and I'm generally nice to people, so people help me. But I'm not a control freak at all. I'm willing to let people help me. Excuse me, but like you and I were talking before we started today, I like to see how the sausage is made at least once. So, I before I hire a plumber, I'm going to figure out how to fix this, or before I hire an electrician, and I can do pretty much anything in a house. I like to at least know how to do it before I say, okay, I'm going to let somebody else do it. So once I do something, I can delegate it. I don't always do that because I usually move on to an unrelated project
Mm.
and learn that. So that's one of the things that I need to do for 2020 is to accept help or hire help. It's not a matter of money. It's just a matter of, I can't even imagine how much stuff I could get done if I had somebody helping me. So
Let's
I need
let's
to do
talk
that.
let's talk about indirect help. What I mean, one of the things that we touched on in our earlier conversation, that when we had off the record, as well as just before we jumped on, was when you're dealing with people, especially people who may not necessarily either understand what you're doing, they've kind of got their way of doing things and they don't quite get you, or they're the naysayers, right? They're the people that for some reason or another, are going to give you a hard time about something. How do you deal with that? Like with that idea of those peers that you have and the pressure that they can present to you?
Well, there was actually a chapter in the book that didn't make it to the this final version that came out, but it's going to be in the next book, and it's all around surrounding myself with people that are positive and supportive, and getting rid of the people that I don't have to really. I can't avoid everybody that's not right in my life because some of them are related by marriage or something that I can't choose. But for the most part, I don't let anybody in my life that's not a nice person, that's not honest, that doesn't do good things, and that's not doesn't leave me better off than they found me, and vice versa. And so what I talked about in this chapter was surrounding yourself with people, not to always say, "Oh, Lex, you're Superman. You can jump off this building," or "Hey, you can do it. Go do anything you want. Here's a trophy." I don't want those people. I want real people that will say, "Hey, here's an idea. Instead of thinking about this, what about that?" And I don't cast my pearls in front of swine because they were the first people to tell me why I won't work. So I'm looking for honest and authentic feedback, but I know who not to talk to because every time it's just it's a sandwich of stuff you don't want to eat, and it's just the constant barrage of negativity, criticism. Oh, you don't want to do that. So I know who they are. I can name you 10 of them who I don't even bounce things off of anymore because they're going to immediately poo-poo it. But I like people that are either neutral or positive and can point out what may or may not work, but not being in a in a negative light. So I have a very Andy Traub, for example, he's brilliant. He'll shoot straight, and so will Jeff Goins. They're very direct, very intuitive, and they will also tell me that's a bad idea. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. But they're not mean about it.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be mean. Whereas some of the people in my life, they've been mean, and I'm not going to go there anymore.
When you need those people too. Do you find that that kind of pressure can be a catalyst though, like from peers and from people say, hey, you can't do that. You're like, hey, I'll do it. I'll show you.
Yeah, I love that. I went to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee simply because a guy named Steve at my AP physics table senior year in high school, we were comparing the colleges we were going to go to, and he pulled out this sheet of paper and started comparing them on campus and women and academics and athletics and blah blah blah. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And he said, doesn't matter. You couldn't get into Vanderbilt anyway. So after class, I ran up to the Career Center and got an application and filled it out, and I ended up going to Vanderbilt just because Steve said I couldn't go there.
When you were putting the book together, what was the was it like reliving the whole thing? I know when I've written books, it's like reliving because the kind of the process or the journey. What was that like for you? If that was what happened, what was that like for you as you went through it? Because it's almost like you get to do it all over again.
Yeah, that's a lot of that stuff when I read it, I know I have the same feeling that I was when I was up on top of a mountain in India or on a motorcycle in Laos when I was driving for 17 days. And those memories are like, they're deep inside of me. The book is about a lot of my personal experiences. There's no fiction in it. It all happened. And I actually just found out today that I'm going to be speaking here in front of 350 people in April, which is a month after this is scheduled to come out. So when this comes out a month before that, I will have spoken in Louisville for 350 people talking about travel for the newspaper here. And it's they want me to pick one story, and they already told me because they've got my book. They said, I want you to talk about one of these three stories. And I'm like, that's cool. And they said, can you do that? And I said, yeah, I'll talk to you all day long about that because I was there. It was fantastic. And so they're vivid memories. They're not just, hey, I woke up and I had coffee and I went down and did something really amazing happened. So writing the book was like reliving it. And I went back and looked at my photos to get more ideas and to get some more color and detail about what I was writing about. And, I had blogged about a lot of this stuff when I was traveling so I could keep my family and friends updated with, the Lexpedition.com. That was my travel blog. So I ended up going back and looking at a bunch of stuff about that. But yeah, it was writing the book was a pain in the butt. As you know, writing books for anybody that's ever done one, it's a marathon, and there were highlights, high times and low times, but oh my gosh, it was writing it was like reliving it. So
when you're writing a book rather, or even just reading in general, who are some of the authors that you read that, kind of hit you in the right spot and want to propel you to keep moving forward in the right direction? Because I know, to keep that direction going can be a challenge, and often looking outward to, again, those peers that are, or those people that are kind of, that you want to espouse some of the qualities that they have. Who are some of the writers that you follow and the books that you read that are kind of like, you know what, this is exactly, they're hitting all the right notes with me?
Well, that's a good question. I only read three types of books in my life. I read either some ways to make money, which are business books. I read stuff about spirituality and Zen or meditation, and I read something that's going to help me improve my life and make me more efficient. And I know that's a broad statement, but one of my all-time favorite books, and I've given out a whole bunch of them as gifts, is the guy that did Dilbert, Scott Adams.
Oh yes, the fail. What's it called again? The fail book. I can't remember the name of it. You know it. Say it.
It's got a picture of a shoe on the front. It's how to fail at almost anything. How to fail at almost everything and still win big.
Right.
And I've got the book here in my hand. I've got more stuff not highlighted, but underlined and pages, dog-eared than I've ever had in any book. And the reason it was this way was because it was just so it was useful information that I could put to use right away. And it wasn't theory. It was all just like, try this. And, he talks about, because I'm a kind of a shy guy, I don't mind getting up on stages but I like my space. And he said, just imagine imagine the guy or the person that can go into any room and seem to light it up. Just go in there and act like that person. You don't have to be that person. Just act like that person's coming through you.
Yep.
And I tried it for a while, and I tried to act like my buddy Danny, who's a great salesperson, and he can walk in any room and strike up a conversation with anybody. And I just acted like Danny, and it worked. It was like, all right, I'll try this, So that was one of the things that I immediately started doing because of that book. And then I read one of my favorite all-time books is the 80-20 Principle by Cook or Koch, Koch. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yep.
And, I love travel books. I've got Vagabonding by Rolf Potts. And there was a book that I read. Somebody at the Zen Center gave me one called The Places in Between, about a person that had walked all the way across Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks. And it was a British guy, and he walked all the way across Afghanistan. And the whole time I was reading, I was just like, this guy's crazy. And so I don't read any nonfiction.
Or any fiction, you mean?
I don't read any fiction, and I don't read any poetry because my brain, I was a math major, and my brain just doesn't do well unless it's pretty straightforward, which is, if you read my book or any of my writing, it's all straightforward. I don't use flowery terms or try to impress you with vocabulary. I just speak and write and read very authentically.
So when it comes to the book and you're looking at the moving from regrets and routine to freedom, passion, and adventure, and somebody wants to do that, let's say, other than pick up the book, which they should, and we're going to link to it in the show notes, obviously, what's one thing that you did that, well, I'll ask you two things. First part is, what's the simplest thing somebody could do to get started with that? And then secondly, what was the thing that you did that was unexpectedly more beneficial than you could have imagined it would have been?
All right, so let's start with the first one, because I don't know if I had a couple cups of coffee earlier. I don't know if I'll be able to remember the second part.
I'll come back to it if you need to.
So the first one was, what would be my recommendation for someone who wants to do something like this?
Yeah, the simplest thing that they can just get started, the first simple step.
The first simple step is for me, this is what I do, is I put something out with a date, and I say, on such and such a date, I'm going to do whatever. But I just can't put it and write it on a piece of paper or put it on my Google Calendar and then walk away and expect that 5 months from now I'm going to be in Indonesia. So what I do is in some cases I bought a ticket 6 months from now and say I'm going to be in India, and then it's pretty much I'm going to be in India because I bought a ticket. But my suggestion is, no matter what you want to do, put a date, draw a line in the sand, and then start telling people. Pick up the phone, or it's better not to do it via email or social media. Actually have a conversation and tell somebody what you're doing, why you're doing it. They might not. You don't need to tell them the deep reasons, but I'm doing this. This is the date, and I'm going to do it, and put it out there instead of keeping it a secret. Mm-hmm. So I'm externally motivated because I don't like to let people down, and I like to look good. So, which is kind of the same, two sides of the same coin. So, pick a date, pick a project, and then tell people about it, which will keep you from hopefully making excuses and falling short. And if you fail, try it again.
Now, what about the thing that you did or have done that's yielded results that benefited you that you didn't expect to have as great an impact as it did?
The Zen Center would probably be, going to live at a Zen Center for 16 months, because what ended up happening to me, even after the first month or two, changed the rest of my life, and the rest of my life and my decisions. I don't expect people to be able to go and do that. But what it did was it allowed me that ended up helping me realize that I wanted to sell my properties in Arizona It helped me get rid of a lot of extra baggage physically in my life and emotionally and with relationships. And so that had a major impact. The other thing that you and I talked about was I had been working on this friggin' book, Passport Forward, which before it was called Passport Forward, it was called the Lexpedition.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's many different iterations until, the current version. And my brother Dominic kept saying, dude, you got to write a book. You're amazing. Dude, write a book. And I'm like, okay, one of these days. But right now I'm living at a Zen center, or I'm traveling around the world. And one of these days. So finally, one of these days was weighing down on me too much. And I said, okay, I'm going to get these books in your hand by Christmas. It was 2 years ago. And I did a Kickstarter campaign and raised $12,000. It wasn't charity. $12,000 worth of pre-book orders, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
number was. I'm doing
Yep.
this off the top of my head. $12,000 of advanced book sales, and had 200 and something backers. And basically, when the thing went through and they sent me the money, I had all this cash. But the most important thing was, okay, I can't let these people down. So I finished my book, got it edited, bought all the copies, had it shipped to my house, and did a signing party, and mailed them all, or hand delivered them if they were here in town. And then my girlfriend and I got on a plane to go to Machu Picchu. So that was what ended up happening after the Kickstarter campaign. I didn't expect everything to happen after that, but because of the Kickstarter campaign and because I actually finished my book, the book ended up becoming my calling card for doing book signings and presentations. It allowed me to be a published author. It allowed me to then do the Kindle version, and I'm working on the audiobook, which will be out here shortly. And that has moved me from one of these days I want to do something and always regretting not doing it, to having done it, and now I'm moving on to the next project. So that was the unintended consequences. There were the doors that were open because of it, but also having completed it and put my hands up in the air and said, I wrote a book. Here it is. I've got it in my hand. And my brother Dominic can't complain at me anymore, or complain to me that I'm a slacker. So did
Lex,
that answer your
no,
question?
that totally did. That totally did. Lex, what is through this journey, through the changes you've made? I mean, spending that time at the Zen monastery. I know you took the stage at the last tribe conference that Jeff had, the one I wasn't able to make it to. So that would have been a great opportunity to meet, but we just couldn't make that happen on my end.
Yeah, right.
What are you looking forward to? Considering the title of the book is Passport Forward, what are the things that you're looking forward to in the months ahead?
Wow. That's a good question. We actually did an exercise here recently with the group, and 2019, unfortunately, I lost my father. He was my favorite human being. I lost him in February. My sweet girlfriend lost her dad in September, and my brother-in-law lost his mom in October or whatever it was. So 2019 was a year of loss, and I had a whole bunch of projects that I started but not finished, and I envisioned that I'm like standing out on this island, called Lex Island or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got all these people that want to come hang out with me or come support me or love me or do whatever. And I've only got one bridge built, which is the book, and all these other bridges that I started, like a course and the audio book and a meditation / cooking workshop, which I'm going to be doing in Texas here in the next month or so. These are the types of things that I never finished because of all the things that were going on in my life last year. So what I'm looking forward to soon is launching my first online course, which will be a combination of Thinkific and Zoom calls with a buddy of mine named Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Locally, I'm going to be doing a workshop in Texas, and my audiobook will be up before the time this podcast comes out. So what I'm looking forward to is putting my hands up in the air at least 3 times in the next 4 months with other things that I've accomplished that I've been putting off for years, and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. So I've told people, I'm like, I'm not going to take on any more responsibilities or any more projects until I finish these 3 things, because they've been gnawing at me, because I've got people that are involved in it. It's not just me. There you go. There's the answer. Each of those 3 or have other people besides myself involved. And so I don't like letting people down. So I'm looking forward to completion, and I'm looking forward to hopefully nobody in my life, hopefully nobody close to me dying for at least a year, you know?
Lex, this has been a great conversation. People can pick up the book, Passport Forward, Moving from Regrets and Routine to Freedom, Passion, and Adventure. Where can they pick it up, and where can they keep up with your work and see if, what you're looking forward to the year ahead is something that they want to, kind of follow as well?
Well, thank you. Passport Forward is available on Amazon. It's both the Kindle and the paperback. If you want a signed copy, you can just go to my website, which also has all the other stuff I was talking about with the speaking engagements and workshops I'll be doing. It's thelexpedition.com. That's the Lexpedition, Lexpedition.com. It's basically the expedition with an L in front of it. And I mean, I'll show you, put it in the show notes. And if you want a signed copy, just email me. You can just email me at lex@thelexpedition.com, and I can hook you up. And then the audio version, the Audible version, will be up. It's up there, hopefully, by the time this comes out. So that'll be up there as well. So it's narrated with my golden voice. And people tell me I sound like Kevin Costner. So for what that's worth, you'll get a double dip.
Okay, well, yeah, now I'm sitting there, I'm going, yeah, you kind of do. So there you go.
Someone told me that once, and if I tell people that, they can't hear my voice without thinking of Kevin Costner and Dancing with Wolves.
It's true. There is that there for sure. Absolutely. Lex, thanks again for joining me today on the Productivities Podcast. It's been a real treat.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, and look forward to meeting you face to face here one of these days shortly.